Kenji Iwaisawa's new film 100 Meters is this incredible anime that is really about the emotional lives of men. And what's extraordinary about it as a sports film done through anime is that it is a reminder that even slightly cliched material or familiar material can be brought to life with extraordinary technical skill. And the anime in this film is off the charts brilliant. The structure of the story is also brilliant. The film is about two men who compete against each other throughout their lives. They meet as children. One of them is a kind of Roger Federer style natural athlete called Togashi, and he is just like a gazelle. He can just run easily, and he's winning every race. And the other, Komiya, is this kind of more Djokovic style. I kept thinking like kind of hard Scrabble king who's come up out of nowhere and wants it more, but is perhaps a more awkward character. And they bond as boys at school. One of them, Togashi, mentors Kamiya, and then they come back together in later life as rivals. It is kind of a familiar structure in that sense, and the way in which it totally focuses on the male characters reminded me of something like Coriolanus, where you basically have, the most emotional relationship you can have is with your friend and rival. It's like you're in love with him, basically. And this film really pushes on that there are several other supporting male characters, and what they all talk about is the meaning of running. What does it mean to run in a straight line for 100 meters? And to make that your whole life, and the way in which that becomes the ultimate test of who you are. It reminds me of a passage from J.M. Coetzee's memoir Boyhood, where he talks about how for him as a little boy in South Africa, cricket was the truth of life. And whether or not you could stand up there and hit the ball was everything. And it really did give me flashbacks to being a boy. I remember how that belief system held sway in my childhood, and it's not the most fun if you prefer something maybe a little bit more nuanced. But in all fairness, as this film progresses, that nuance develops, and it develops through the technical skill with which the story is told. Uh, there is almost, well, this is a bit mean, but very little effort is spent either in terms of narrative or in terms of artwork on the supporting female characters. But intense effort is lavished on the male leads, who are characterized with incredible precision physically, particularly Togashi, who somehow, I mean, because in anime you can have more or less realism in the way in which people's expressions are rendered. You can have more or less physical detail. And this, I think, I'm not the most experienced viewer of anime, but I think this is the most intuitively realistic depiction of facial expressions and physical movements I've seen in an anime. It really is a work of art. This young man needs to be represented as arrogant, insecure, brilliant, in certain ways very ordinary, and almost monk-like in his dedication to his craft, and yet at the same time capable of what actually happens to him in the middle of the film, which is he collapses, he becomes second rate, he doesn't care anymore. And somehow, in the movements of this character's face, there's a kind of sheepish um, elegance to the character, which works perfectly. And he even captures, the anime artists even capture the way in which some teenage boys move more like men than men because they're trying so hard to be a certain kind of man. And you can see how this person is inhabiting a masculinity he doesn't yet own. It's extraordinary. The other things in the film that really work are the supporting characters, which allow the central rivalry to be contextualized in a series of male lives. Essentially, 100 meters becomes very openly and overtly a metaphor for life. Do you run at it in a straight line? And if so, what do you do with it? What does that mean to run at something, to demand something from that experience? And we see how all these other supporting characters handle that same question. Again, nothing very new there in terms of what does it mean to be in sport? What does it mean to test yourself? It reminded me at times of Free Solo, though it's more companionable than Free Solo, more about relationships. The film about Alex Honnold scaling a mountain, which I absolutely loved, I thought was extraordinary. And in fact, in Free Solo, there is also an implicit friendship between him and the cameraman. So maybe, one of the messages of these sports films is that the deep intimacy between you and your male friends as a man is kind of part of the structure of the sporting experience. And this film renders that very, very movingly, and it ends very, very cleverly. I won't tell you how. But the reality is that this is a film which is rescued from familiar subject matter and some of the cliches that we all know about growing up as a man by the incredible delicacy of the animation. So, in a funny way, that animation both confirms and contradicts the central tenets of the film because those lines move in these extraordinarily elliptical, nuanced ways when you're actually drawing someone's real face. There's no straight line. The straight line is revealed by this film as ultimately kind of deathly at times, but there is, at the same time, with the level of accomplishment in this film, you sense that same monkish dedication to craft. So it's a film about that dedication, and I have to say I was really moved by it.